Welcome to Tokyo Wave, recorded in a live studio in Harajuku, Japan, with your hosts Aaron and Parker.
All right, everyone, welcome to episode 40 of Tokyo Wave. We're your hosts, Aaron Randall
and Parker Allen. On Tokyo Wave, we bring you weekly updates from our studio in Harajuku.
Join us in segments featuring this week's top news,
political happenings,
business,
and other random garbage.
To get us started, here are this week's top news highlights.
Japan under tightened border restrictions and second state of emergency in Tokyo area as coronavirus surges.
Japanese beer giant Suntory's CEO says new emergency declaration will bankrupt businesses and harm workers.
Police nab toilet god suspected of stealing 18 toilets from construction sites in Chiba.
This week in Japan.
All right, to get us started, here's our first news story. Japan under tightened border restrictions and second state of emergency in Tokyo area as coronavirus surges.
On January 7th, Prime Minister Yoshihide Suga declared a state of emergency in the Tokyo metropolitan area, authorizing more robust measures to fight the recent surge in coronavirus infections.
So this emergency declaration will last until February 7th, and it entails asking people to stay home and calls for restaurants and bars to stop serving alcohol by 7 p.m. and close by 8 p.m. Gyms, department stores, and movie theaters will also be subject to shorter hours.
Residents of the area covered by the state of emergency, which includes Tokyo as well as Kanagawa, Chiba, and Saitama prefectures, will be asked to refrain from non-essential trips outside their homes, especially after 8 p.m.
So this must mean that the Rona, like the boogeyman, is especially dangerous at night.
I saw this and I thought it was a joke. I'm like, after 8 p.m.? I mean, what does this mean? I had to look for the source and I was like, oh, wow, they actually did say this.
That's wild. That's wild.
And I think this basically is a veiled way of saying, don't go out drinking, you naughty citizens.
Yeah. And to all the other places that people wander to after drinking. Yeah.
And additionally, we would also like to remind our listeners that Japan is currently subject to additional tightened entry restrictions.
The government currently requires Japanese citizens and foreign residents coming from countries and territories where the new coronavirus variant has been confirmed to submit negative virus test results within 72 hours of departure and undergo tests upon arrival through the end of January, which could be extended.
This is actually new because Japanese citizens, up until this latest announcement, were not subject to this pre-flight check.
Yeah, this is really tight border control. Basically what they're saying is a Japanese citizen in the US or the UK that tests positive, they can't fly back to their home country.
Or, even if they didn't test anything, they do have to get a negative test result before they'll be allowed to get on the plane.
Right.
Japan has also banned new entry by non-resident foreign nationals who have recently been to Britain and South Africa.
But Parker, we're still going to have the Olympics in July, right?
Of course.
It's only 5 months away.
I think the vaccine is widely being pointed at as this white knight that's going to save us all from not having an Olympics in July. But the government has said that vaccines could start as early as late February, but this is a country of 120 million people.
So what I read in Time Out Tokyo was they want 50% of the country vaccinated by, was it April? End of April? So they've already got contracts with 3 pharmaceutical companies. The rollout has to be going on right now to meet that target.
Yes, at the same time, though, the only vaccine that has submitted the documents for approval by the Japanese authorities is the Pfizer vaccine. And I think the latest news report says that the Moderna vaccine might not get its trials underway until May of this year.
Yikes.
So, Pfizer, if you're listening to this, hurry up for that vaccine because you're the only game in town. I would imagine this means a lot of money for them.
Yeah.
Not like they're going to make it with all the other countries in the world that want one, but...
All right, and up next, Japanese beer giant Suntory's CEO says new emergency declaration will bankrupt businesses and harm workers.
The Mainichi has reported that the president of Japanese beverages conglomerate Suntory Holdings, Takeshi Niinami, told reporters at a press conference on January 5th that he is worried the coronavirus state of emergency will force many restaurants and bars out of business and push their workers into dire financial straits.
Niinami told reporters, "I think bankruptcies will increase. Conditions will be more severe than they were the last time. It's the non-regular workers who are bearing the brunt of all this. Suicide numbers are rising. There are some people who think it's coming too early. It's very difficult to say what the best timing is."
I guess Niinami did stop short of suggesting that these down on their luck workers indulge in one of his delicious alcoholic beverages.
Don't forget to drink that Suntory, son.
It'll fix what ails you. Kyodo also reported that the Japanese government and Bank of Japan reaffirmed on January 7th that they will cooperate to ensure stability of the foreign exchange market following the yen's recent rise to a 10-month high against the dollar.
I didn't know about this.
The yen is too damn high.
So the dollar continues to weaken versus the yen, going down to around 102 yen to the dollar, which is the lowest since March of last year, as uncertainties over the economic outlook on the back of the new coronavirus pandemic help make Japan's currency more attractive as a safe haven asset.
You might think that this would make the Japanese authorities very happy, but in fact, just the opposite is true. A strong yen undermines the price competitiveness of Japan-made products overseas and reduces exporters' profits earned when repatriated.
It is said that an exchange rate below 100 yen to the dollar is the entry point to the danger zone that will have severe negative impact on major Japanese firms, and therefore the stock market and greater economy in Japan.
So, what's going to happen next?
Well, with everything that's been going on in the US, it's funny because the yen is also really has a similar kind of fluctuation to that of crypto, right? And we've seen like Bitcoin and Ethereum skyrocket recently. So, this kind of global uncertainty really helps reserve currencies like the yen and also other, markets that are not really reserved, but I guess escape markets or alternative markets like crypto. I think it's going to keep rising, especially for the next 2 weeks.
Yeah, and the question for the yen, of course, is what's going to happen to the U.S. markets after the inauguration of President-elect Biden? Or are they just going to catch everything on fire and America's going to go poof in a big nuclear cloud?
I think it's a 50-50 chance.
Yeah, at this point. Good luck, America. Apparently, you really need it. Next up, police nab toilet god suspected of stealing 18 toilets from construction sites in Chiba.
Fuji News has reported that an office worker was arrested on January 7th on suspicion of stealing toilets from newly built houses in Funabashi, Chiba.
Police have called it the Toire no Kamisama, or toilet god incident, during their investigation.
Ryusei Takada, 26 years old, who was arrested on suspicion of theft, is suspected of invading new housing construction sites in Funabashi City in October 2020 and stealing 18 items such as toilet bowls.
Takada has admitted to the allegations.
Yeah, I sold them to secondhand shops and stole them to cover my living expenses, see?
Toilets were stolen one after another at surrounding new construction sites.
Takara used to work for a housing construction company until he turned to a life of crime.
Man, Funabashi, that's really close to where I live, actually.
I keep on thinking about, what was this guy saying to these, recycle shops when he was trying to sell them?
Yeah, I've got a couple of toilets right here. They're brand new, but, the bits and bats are dangling a bit. They just kind of fell off the bottom of a truck, bada bing, bada boom.
No, they must have been nice properties with like the really nice Japanese toilets, which can get pretty expensive.
They are. I was recently in the market for a toilet, and I noticed that the popular models by Toto are usually upwards of $2,000 to $3,000 or 200,000 to 300,000 yen.
Yeah. So I mean, this guy could 18 toilets. He could easily made 40K.
Yeah, I mean, this more money than you can flush down the toilet. That's for sure.
Yeah.
You'd get quite the clog, but not if you bought a Toto.
So, I hate to say it or worry anybody, but, really, in Japan, I used to work at a real estate company. And whenever the construction's like finishing and you have lots of different companies going in and, putting in a new toilet, putting in new windows, whatever, it's not locked. Like the security is really, really bad. And I remember like back in the day working at these places thinking, I'm like, damn, man, there might be one lock, but a lot of companies use the same code for all the locks. It's like, man, somebody could really easily get in here, not even breaking the lock, like just coming in through one of the windows that they have like a drape over that's completely open.
So Aaron, you need a new toilet?
Actually, yeah.
Well, I got a few back there in the back. Just pop open the trunk and take your pick. Best price.
I'm not even joking. I'm going to start looking for like a legit Japanese toilet soon because I've been missing out. I haven't used one.
Yeah, the really fancy ones blow my mind because they've got the seat that pops up automatically. And I mean, things like the bidet feature and the heated seat. I mean, that's old hat. But the new ones, I mean, they have like these LED lights and you can make them different colors. And
yeah,
it's like, it really is like, Disneyland for your bottom.
I love the music too, the atmospheric music. You can do like rainforest.
Yeah, and then there's also that music that it will play so that people can't hear you taking a dump.
Yeah, it's supposed to adjust the like white noise.
Yeah.
To yeah.
This one's called Calming Forest.
I have noticed like being in the public bathrooms and like guys will have that on. And I can tell
it's
that
really distracting.
It's so like, distracting, man. It's even. I think it makes it worse.
It's like, dude has some serious bowel problems when you hear this like violent waterfall noise, right?
It's like, damn, it took that much volume to cover it up. Wow.
So you had Thai food for lunch, right?
Oh my God. Oh man. But I mean, hey, this is one of the things that most tourists, when they come here, they rave about when they go back to their home countries. The toilets here are amazing.
Yeah, one of the first things I did when I went back to my parents in America was I forced them to install one of those Toto toilets.
Oh, nice. Yeah. If you can get a hold of them, yeah.
And they were so opposed to it, but then they installed it and they're like, we don't want to use any of our other toilets.
Oh, dude, yeah. There's no going back.
Something about that violent waterfall noise. Yeah. It just really makes it so peaceful.
If you're new to Japan, you can check out these toilets we're talking about at your nearest konbini. They usually do have really nice toilets installed.
You can always tell how nice a convenience store is based on their bathroom.
Yeah. Some of the newer ones in Tokyo have some pretty sweet toilets, man. It's like, wow. This is free.
Then you go back the next day with a spanner wrench. Uh-oh.
All right. And up next on Weird Thing of the Week, we're going to talk about coming of age day in Japan during a pandemic.
You're now listening to Tokyo Wave.
Recently, the Mainichi reported that this year's coming-of-age ceremonies across Japan are being held online or called off amid a surge in coronavirus cases.
Local governments across Japan have been making shifts to cancel coming-of-age ceremonies or hold them online following the national government's announcement on January 4th that it will consider declaring another state of emergency across Tokyo and 3 neighboring prefectures, Saitama, Chiba, and Kanagawa.
One of the first governments to make a statement on this in Aomori Prefecture announced on January 4th that it will call off their ceremonies and hold an alternative event online. Although the local government had planned to hold a coming-of-age ceremony while taking infection prevention measures, such as by distributing participants across a number of sites and requiring them to apply in advance, the local government instead decided to upload a YouTube video commemorating the event. Listeners might not understand the significance of Coming of Age Day in Japan, but it is an extremely important ceremony for people who have turned the age of the majority, which is age 20 in Japan. And there's a lot of pomp and circumstance around this ceremony. Many shinseijin, or newly minted adults, spend a lot of money on outfits for this day, and that for women could be something like a traditional furisode kimono, or for men it could be a new suit or the traditional hakama or male kimono outfit, which costs a lot of money, and a lot of people will rent these outfits at a local shop and could spend, hundreds or even thousands of dollars on the regalia for attending this event. So to suddenly, essentially a week before the day, be told that there's no ceremony to go to for these people is not just a big disappointment, but also a big blow to their or their parents' finances.
No, for sure. I mean, I've only ever watched these ceremonies from afar, but it's really, like 100 Japanese or so that all just turned the age of 20, dressed to the nines, and they're just taking pictures together for 2 to 3 hours. It's like a photo shoot event, right? So not being able to be with your friends and dress up like that, I mean, this is a huge deal for Japanese, and it really sucks that they can't do this.
Yeah, so when I turned 20 years old, I was a college student in Japan, and I was psyched up for this event because the year before it was my turn, I went to see the event and what was going on, kind of to get myself ready for what I was going to have to do the next year. And what I saw was basically a big party. I mean, there's all of these, newly minted adults hanging out outside. And because age 20 is also the age that it's okay for newly minted adults to start drinking alcohol, you had some of these, kind of Yankee or kind of bad dude kind of guys outside with these big bottles of sake, and they're just, hanging out and making a mess of everything. And they look like they were having a really good time.
Oh, for sure, for sure.
So when I decided to join my local ceremony, which at the time meant going to the Shibuya city ceremony, because I was living in Yoyogi when I was in college, I also wanted to dress the part. So I debated whether or not to go with the Japanese thing or wear a suit. And in the end, I took option C, which was I actually found a tuxedo at a secondhand store. So I went, dressed like a politician about to go to the first session of the diet. It was crazy.
Nice, man. A good foreshadowing.
Yes. And because of my weird outfit, or because there was some random foreigner at this, mainly Japanese ceremony, I was interviewed by some big TV station.
Oh, man. That's such like a classic Japan experience. That's awesome.
It was crazy. And then the other funny thing is Shibuya Ward also happens to be home to the Japan Communist Party. So outside this, big ceremony with all these, young men and women, getting hammered and taking pictures of each other and having a great time, there was this big sound truck with this politician, congratulating the newly minted adults and giving this big political speech, and absolutely no one was listening.
The commies are there too.
It was you had to be there to understand it sort of situation.
Yeah. So moves to hold ceremonies online have spread to Tokyo. Sumida Ward live streamed a concert and showed messages from former teachers. Katsushika Ward officials planned a ceremony without attendees and uploaded its video to their website.
Also in Yamanashi Prefecture, the Fuji Yoshida municipal government actually just decided to outright cancel their coming of age ceremony.
Yikes.
Then in northern Japan, the Sendai municipal government requested young adults living outside Miyagi Prefecture to refrain from attending their coming of age ceremony. And this is also something to think about because a lot of the people coming of age are of college age. So they're going to school in Tokyo or Osaka or somewhere outside their hometown. And a lot of these young adults will come back to their hometown to have this, important kind of rite of coming of age with the people who they grew up with, which means going back to their hometown, which is obviously something that is being heavily discouraged during the pandemic.
Right.
So in the Sendai press conference on January 4th, Sendai's mayor, Kazuko Kori, addressed the new adults saying,
"I'd like you to make an adult decision."
So the municipal government earlier sent emails to individuals registered as prospective attendees and asked them to refrain from returning home or coming to the ceremony. Local authorities had planned to send more strongly worded emails requesting people to refrain from attending to residents of prefectures which would be subject to potential state of emergency.
and, going through this, and now this is, of course, all past tense, as coming of age day has come and gone, but this was a real last minute decision, and it was very disorganized because the case numbers continued to go up around the New Year holiday, which also meant all of the government offices, which would normally be deciding what to do and planning how to mitigate a crisis, were closed essentially until that Monday, January the 4th. So essentially, all of the bureaucrats went back to work to see the news that the Japanese government was planning a state of emergency, and as a result, lots of knee-jerk reactions happened, and each local government and each prefecture's response was kind of all over the place. So I'm sure there were some places that just did it like normal, and other places that switched to YouTube or some online streaming, and other places that just outright canceled it.
Right. I mean, what do you think is the, there's no doubt we're in a second or third wave now is what they're calling it?
Third wave, fourth wave, fifth wave, fish wave.
It's the numbers.
Tokyo wave. It's a Tokyo wave.
Ooh,
oh my God.
Tokyo wave. It is a Tokyo wave for sure. But I mean, the full country numbers are pretty scary. I mean, just before the new year, we were at like 3,000 or so countrywide. And now, as of January 6th, it jumped up to almost 6,000. So doubled in 6 days after the new year. I mean, we're seeing similar numbers in America because everybody got together for Christmas. I mean, how are you going to stop people from getting together for Christmas and New Year's, right? And I guess the same thing goes for Japan. I wonder if this is just an outcome of people all traveling, getting back with their families, and then coming back to the city.
I'm not so sure about that, though, because obviously we only know anecdotes from people who we're in some sort of communication with, but from what I saw on social media, a lot of people did refrain from going back home over the holidays, at least in Japan. And overall, it looks like people were being relatively careful with trying not to spread the virus by doing lots of travel. However, I do think that this current resurgence in the virus is just a compounding effect of people slowly becoming less careful with how they are acting in their daily lives. And it can't be avoided to notice that there are some people who are taking this extremely seriously. There are lots of people who are taking it kind of seriously. And then there are also people who just aren't really taking it seriously at all.
Yeah, and I think that last group of people is slowly increasing. I think people are just really exhausted and sick of, having to watch everything they do and not being able to go out, being stuck inside, not being able to do just basic fun stuff. It sucks. Yeah.
And I think that there's a lot of confusion this year. And of course, now we're in the middle of January, but we didn't have a regular holiday season. And
no.
Also, people had been, so consumed by the pandemic through 2020. I think a lot of people want to put it behind them and start this year anew. But already, especially with this state of emergency, the situation is now that while people psychologically want to forget about the pandemic, we're still very much right in the middle of it. And especially in Japan, the numbers are obvious that the pandemic is at its worst that it's ever been right now.
Oh, yeah. Japan, the UK, US. I mean, every passing day is the worst day it's been. And like you said, most people want to refresh. They're like, put 2020 behind me. Let's look for 2021. Get rid of the pandemic, blah, blah, blah. But unfortunately, that's not how it works, right?
Yeah, we're here in the middle of January and still pandemic.
Yep. Yeah. We started this podcast, out of the wake of the initial lockdown and pandemic. And we're still in it.
Yeah, well, I guess Tokyo Wave is getting contagious.
Tokyo Wave, helping spread the wave.
And we have no listeners.
Yeah.
But thank you very much to our listeners, because December of 2020 was the best month yet for our listeners' statistics, which means that more and more of people like you are listening to our episodes. And for that, we are very grateful. Of course, we're going to continue sharing with you the latest of what's going on in Japan. And this year we have a lot of interesting special guests that we'd like to introduce to you as well. And we hope that you'll continue listening.
Yes, thank you guys so much for a great 2020. And here's looking to a very exciting 2021 with some great new special guests and some awesome returning guests as well. Hey listeners, that's right, you listener right there.
Who do you think should be our next guest on Tokyo Wave? Let us know. Drop us a line at wave@tokyowave.jp.
We hope you enjoyed Tokyo Wave.
If you haven't already, you can subscribe to our podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, and YouTube.
Join us again next week on Tokyo Wave.